Hey guys, this lesson is on using the distributive property of multiplication. So we're going to look at a different way than our box method to multiply larger numbers. Our first example is 10 times 21. Now when we use the distributive property, we're going to break down our original problem into multiple problems that make it easier to multiply. So before we get started, we need to choose a number that we think is going to be easier to multiply. Normally, this number is going to be one that's a single digit, so just one digit, or ends in a 0, which means that it's a multiple of 10. So in this problem, I'm going to choose the number 10 to keep because I know that it's going to be easy to multiply. And with the other number, I'm going to break it up by place value. And when I break 21 up by place value, I know that I'm going to have 20 and 1. And because I broke that up into two different numbers, that tells me that I'm going to have two problems that I'm working with. The number that we kept is going to go in both problems. So each of my problems that are in these parentheses are going to start with the number 10. I'm going to take the number that I broke up and put one part in each of my problems. So I'll have 10 times 20 and 10 times 1. And these are giving me partial products. And I know that when I'm multiplying and I have partial products at the end, I have to add them together. Now 10 times 20, I'm going to multiply the leading numbers. So 1 times 2 is 2. And I'm going to count the zeros. There's 2 zeros. So 10 times 20 is 200. I know that 10 times 1 is just 10 because anything times 1 will equal itself. And then when I add them together, I get 210. So 10 times 21 equals 210. And these parentheses is how I would write that problem using the distributive property. Now I just want to show you something because we've been using the box method. The box method and the distributive property really are the same thing. If I had this problem, I would have 10 on the left side and 20 and 1 on the top. In this first box, I would be multiplying 10 times 20. In the second box, I would be multiplying 10 times 1. You'll notice that these problems are the same as the problems that I put in my parentheses. So using the distributive property is just another way to visualize multiplication. And here, when I get my partial products in the box method, I would still add them together at the end, which is the same thing I did when I used the distributive property. So it's a very similar process, it just looks different visually. Now I want you to try this problem on your own. Remember that you need to choose one number that will be easier to multiply and break apart the other. You should have chosen the number 3 to keep and the number 12 to break apart. We're keeping the number 3 because it's a single digit number that will be easy to multiply. When we break up the number 12, it breaks up into 10 and 2. Now that we've done that, I want you to try and set up your problem. And remember, because 12 has 2 digits, you'll have 2 problems with a plus sign in the middle and multiplication inside that you have to figure out. So remember, we always want to keep the number we chose to leave alone and put it in both sides of the parentheses. So the 3 goes in both sides. We broke up the 12 into 2 different numbers, and one of those numbers goes in the first parentheses and the other goes in the second. So this is what your problem should have looked like. Now I want you to finish out this problem on your own. So now we're going to multiply. I know that 3 times 10 is 30, and 3 times 2 is 6. My last step is to add them together, and 30 plus 6 equals 36. So 3 times 12 equals 36. Our next example is 40 times 75. I want you to try this problem on your own, and then we'll go over it. Okay, so to start this problem, we need to choose which number we're going to keep. We should keep the number 40 because it's a multiple of 10, or it ends in 0, and that means that it'll be easy to multiply with. And we're going to break apart that number 75. 75, when I break it by place value, gets broken into 70 and 5. And now I can set up my parentheses to write the problem using the distributive property. I know that the number I kept, or 40, needs to go in both parentheses. And the other number in each parentheses will come from the way I broke up the number 75. So 70 will go in one set of parentheses and 5 will go in the other. And this is how I write the problem in distributive property form. My next step is going to be to multiply. 40 times 70 should have given you 2,800 because 4 times 7 is 28 and there are 2 zeros, 1 in 40 and 1 in 70. When I do 40 times 5, I know that 4 times 5 is 20 and there's 1 zero. So that means that it's 200. My last step is to add them together, 2,800 plus 200. 8 plus 2 is 10. I know the 0 will go in the hundreds place, and I have to carry the 1. So my final answer is that 40 times 75 equals 3,000. Our last example is 83 times 30. I want you to try this one on your own, and then you'll be able to look at the solution. So the solution to this problem, 83 times 30, would have been 2,490. Make sure if you made a mistake, you look closely at the solution to try and figure out what your mistake was. It's okay to make mistakes, but we need to understand them so we don't make them again in the future.